Boldwood presents Now You Are Mine, written by Amanda Brittany and read by Julie Maisie. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Prologue. 26 years ago. Sheer adrenaline enables me to lift the body into the waiting wheelbarrow and push it round the vast inky lake. Halfway to my destination, a limp arm, as though trying to stop me from moving forward, flops from the barrow and drags along the hard earth. But the wind is on my side, powerful against my back, pushing me onwards, whispering, "They deserved to die. They brought this on themselves." Following an exhausting walk, I drop the corpse into the World War II bunker. It lands face down, arms and legs bent awkwardly at the bottom of the steps, like one of those murder victim outlines you see on TV. I wait some moments, catching my breath, before heading back for the second body. And the process begins again. Before loading the next corpse, I rest, taking deep breaths, my hair clinging to my skull, damp patches under my arms, wondering if I'm doing the right thing. Maybe I should report what happened. No, it's too late for that. Once the second body is down in the bunker, I return to Lakeside House, scrub blood from the driveway and wheelbarrow, my odour none too pleasant, my breathing erratic. Then I go into the house and type a suicide note on the computer, print it off and pin it to the front door against the flaking paint. It will be a while before anyone comes here. Visitors are rare at Lakeside House, but if they come, they will believe the suicide note. Of course they will. The couple were odd, they will say. In time, the house will become derelict. Nobody will know what happened here. Nobody will care. Dashing towards the car, I glance back just once, sickness churning my stomach, bile at the back of my throat threatening to choke me. Yes, the whispering wind reminds me, they deserve to die. They brought this on themselves. Chapter 1. Polly. Polly drives her car onto the cobbles in front of Lakeside House and kills the engine. Taking a deep breath, she picks up the framed photograph from the passenger seat and studies the forlorn young woman in the picture. Polly has known it's her mother since she was old enough to know she was adopted, but only recently, since her parents moved abroad, has she noticed how her biological mother's eyes are a reflection of her own and felt the need to know more about her. She looks up at the sign for Lakeside House, etched into the brickwork above the front door. The same sign is in the photo. She's got the right place, there's no doubting that, and her stomach flips. She slips the photo into her canvas bag, opens her car door, swings her legs round, and steps into the oppressive heat, unusually hot for early September. Stretching her arms above her head and rotating her shoulders, she attempts to shift the aches from the long drive from Oxford. Greek-style pillars flank the doors to the brilliant white building. Green lawns hug the uneven land, lazily sprawling into the distance towards breathtaking views of the rugged Cumbrian mountains. Polly wishes for a moment she was here for different reasons. To absorb herself in the beauty and tranquility of this stunning part of northwest England. To walk in the invisible footprints of Beatrix Potter and William Wordsworth and wild swim in the lakes would go a long way towards repairing her shattered nerves. Her gaze moves across the pretty borders that frame the driveway, landing on a double garage, one door open to reveal a shiny blue minibus. An austere-looking woman in, at a guess, her mid-50s, with a sharp blonde bob, sits on a shaded bench nearby, dragging on an e-cigarette as she reads from a Kindle, a decrepit, rusty wheelbarrow overflowing with decaying cuttings abandoned beside her. 4 cars are parked on the drive. An electric Fiat 500 plugged into a charger, An old Volkswagen camper van with blacked-out front windows and checked curtains tied back at the rear with faded ribbons, a red Vauxhall Corsa, and an SUV. Tugging her suitcase free from the boot of her car, Polly makes her way towards the building, sun burning her neck where her floral cotton dress dips at the back. It's a humid heat, well into the 30s, the kind that makes her blonde curls frizz, her pale skin freckle. She's grateful for the aircon as she steps into the silent, stunning lobby. The floor and furnishings are marble, the ceiling high and ornate. A blue vase stands on the reception counter, white lilies giving off a musky scent. A cosy cushion-filled sofa is wedged into a bay window that looks out towards the drive, a low round table in front of it, glossy art magazines displayed on its glass surface. You could fit the apartment she'd shared with her best friend Nikki into this area alone. Not that she'll ever go back there, to that apartment. Not after what happened. Thank God her brother cleared out her stuff so there's no reason to return. She grips the necklace around her neck. She'd had a ring made for Nikki with the same stone about a year ago, and the gesture was returned on Polly's 26th birthday 6 months later. A green, teardrop peridot stone on a gold chain. For everlasting friendship, Nikki had said, and they'd hugged, happy with their lives. That was before everything went wrong. Polly approaches the counter, rings a bell, and turns to admire the paintings by artists she recognises from a recent trip to an art gallery in London. She'd hoped to gain some knowledge so as not to appear too ignorant when she arrived here. Not that she needs to be an artist to attend. The website deemed the course suitable for anyone from newbies to experienced artists wanting to brush up on their skills or experience a different style or art form. High on the walls are the vivid colours of a Cecily Brown abstract, a Vincent van Gogh, an Henri Rousseau, and a Henry Hopper. Copies, but even she can appreciate them in their heavy frames. Her eyes fall on the painting that had made the new owner of Lakeside, Xander Caldwell, rich. New York in Spring. Again, a copy. The original sold at auction 2 years ago for $3 million. There's no doubting this place is amazing. Xander and his wife Tara have done a fantastic renovation. It looks so different to how it appeared in the photograph taken in the 80s that Polly found online. Hello. I'm Tara Caldwell. Welcome to Lakeside. This beautiful blonde woman in black shorts and a white lacy top seems to have appeared from nowhere, her eyes now fixed on Polly. I hope you had a good journey. Polly presses the palms of her hands against her hair, trying to tame curls that seem determined to fly away, conscious of the creases in her dress and her exhausted appearance. She's not normally worried about how she looks, but this place is posh, and this woman in front of her is pretty much perfect. There were a few jams en route, Polly says, especially in the last 5 miles. Flash flooding? Although the woman's smiling, there's a slight tremble in her voice. She seems uneasy as she brushes lily pollen from the counter, staining her fingers yellow. Yes, a tree was down. I had to take a diversion. The weather's been erratic lately. Tara glances towards the window and back at Polly. But hopefully it will be a sunny 10 days. I hope so. She tugs at the collar of her dress, though perhaps a few degrees cooler. Tara taps tanned fingers across her laptop keyboard and looks at the screen. You must be Polly Ashton. Yes, that's me. As Tara continues to look at the screen, Polly spins round, absorbing more of her surroundings. A grand staircase curves towards what must be the guest rooms. Across the lobby, double doors stand open, giving a view of an elegant lounge, and French doors at the far side lead out towards a stunning lake. Kendallmere, Tara says, and Polly returns her gaze to the woman behind the counter. The lake. It's called Lake Kendallmere. It stretches to the far edges of the retreat. It's beautiful. How big are the grounds? The furthest reaches are about 2 miles out. Wow, I hadn't realised the size of the place. It's a stunning walk. Takes about 2 hours there and back, with plenty of wildlife. I've seen red squirrels and ospreys, and a family of otters took up residence in the lake earlier this year. Not that I got too close. They might be cute to look at, but I read on Facebook they're one of the top predators in the country. Tara holds out a gleaming key. Room 6, she says. It's gorgeous. You'll love it. Looks out over the lake. So relaxing. Thank you. Polly takes the key and turns it over in her hands. Truth is, she's not sure she can relax. Not after everything that's happened. How can she come to terms with the fact a stalker invaded her home, her and Nikki's lives? She shakes away her intrusive thoughts. She's not here at Lakeside to relax anyway, or paint, for that matter. She'll have to give the art sessions a go, she knows that, but she's here in search of her family history, her blood relatives, to transform her mother from the Jane Doe who died giving birth to her to something tangible, a real person. And she's certain the answers lie here. Tara hands Polly a suitcase label with Room 6 written on it. Please tie this to your luggage and put it with the other cases. Ralph will take it up to your room. There's a pile of cases in the corner. Polly ties the label and lifts the handle of her case. Xander and the other guests are in the lounge. Tara points to the double doors as the sound of soft voices reaches Polly's ears. There's a glass of bubbly and nibbles waiting. Thank you. Polly rolls her case across the marble tiles and stands it with the others. When she turns back, Tara is disappearing through a door behind reception. Chapter 2. Polly. Polly enters the lounge, anxiety rising, not a fan of meet and greets. She recognises Xander Caldwell from his website, standing in the far corner surrounded by a handful of guests. He's tall, good-looking, his ice blue eyes startling even from a distance. The website described him as a successful artist who owns a gallery in London, although he's only had the one huge success. His subsequent work has sold, but nothing on the same scale as New York in spring. According to the About Us section, he and Tara, also an artist, met 18 months ago, and after a whirlwind romance lasting just 5 weeks, they got married on a beach in the Caribbean. At a guess, he's around 40. His dark hair is swept back from chiselled features, and he's dressed in a trendy checked suit, a crisp white shirt open at the neck. He catches Polly's eye as she approaches, lifts his chin. Hi there, you must be Polly. There's a hint of an American accent. That's me, she says, sitting down next to a woman who looks to be in her 60s, with short grey hair and a wonky short fringe. She's wearing denim knee-length shorts and a pink fluffy sweater, despite the humid weather, and peers at Polly over gold-rimmed glasses, a small fan whirring in her hand close to her flushed face. Is it hot in here? Or is it me? She says, as the fan hits her nose and makes a painful buzzing sound. It is hot, yes, though the air conditioning helps. Janice Hardacre. The Scottish-sounding woman offers her hand, fingers together, her handshake sweaty but firm. Lovely to meet you. Polly, good to meet you too. Xander gestures to a tray of bubbly-filled glasses. Help yourself to Prosecco, Polly. Thanks. She picks one up, takes a gulp, then another, before scanning the other guests. There are 3. Sitting on the other side of Janice is an attractive red-haired woman in her mid to late 30s, wearing a turquoise caftan dress and flat black sandals laced up her long legs, gladiator style. Beside her is a man of around 40, legs crossed, an A4 sketch pad resting against his thighs, a pencil in his hand. He sports a goatee and a bald head, and his dark green polo shirt and chinos give him a smart casual vibe. And finally, a straight-backed spectacled man who looks to be of a similar age to Caftan Woman, with a red waistcoat and matching bow tie, stands by the French doors, arms folded. It doesn't look as if our sixth guest, Marcia, will be joining us, Xander says, so I'll crack on. He pauses for a moment, his eyes skittering across the expectant faces. I'd like to say a huge welcome to our first ever art retreat at Lakeside House. I hope you are as excited as we are to be here. He smiles, his teeth super white. I've called this little meet and greet not only for you to introduce yourselves and tell us what you hope to gain from the course, but also for my wife and I to tell you a bit about the art course and Lakeside. Tara's sudden approach from behind the row of chairs startles Janice, who leaps up and shoots her drink from her glass, snorting as it splashes her face and goes up her nose. And here's my beautiful wife, Xander says, ignoring the incident and reaching for Tara's hand, as Janice regains her composure and sits back down, mopping her face with a tissue. Hello again, everyone. Tara pins on a rigid smile, still seeming uneasy. I hope you all enjoy your stay with us. Indeed. Xander continues to hold her hand, tight. And now let me tell you all about Lakeside Art Retreat. Caftan woman moves to the edge of her seat and runs slim fingers over a tattoo on her wrist, the letter D entwined by a rose. Bald man snaps closed his sketchbook and lays his sharpened pencil on the low table in front of him, then curls an index finger over his top lip, pressing a thumb under his chin as though contemplating. Bow tie man turns towards the window, giving the group his back. Xander releases Tara's hand and lowers himself into a leather chair, crossing his long legs, and Tara stands by his side, a hand on his shoulder. They look like royalty. I bought Lakeside House 18 months ago, after my darling wife found the details of the auction online. He glances up at her. She doesn't meet his eye. The building had been unclaimed for over 20 years. Run down and abandoned, it needed so much work. Dilapidated didn't begin to cover it. And now, look. He casts his eyes across the high, ornate ceiling, his voice full of pride. We've transformed the place. Wasn't there a suicide pact here years ago? A couple in their early 40s? It's the woman in the caftan, her lips twitching as the smile drops from Xander's face. The man with the red bow tie tears himself away from the window, narrowed eyes focused on Xander. I heard that too. Polly knows about the suicides. When she realised she may have found the house in her mother's photograph, she went on an internet search, finding a mysterious happenings website that focused on the Lake District. There, she found an article about the previous tenants, Esme and Stephen Frampton, taking their own lives, along with the photo of Lakeside from the 80s. She shudders. Were the couple connected to her mother? However beautiful this place is, tragedy lingers here. Their bodies were never found, the woman goes on. All very strange, if you ask me. Xander flicks his hand, agitated, dismissive, and rises once more, resting one arm along the high mantel of an open fireplace. But as you say, it was a long time ago. We don't dwell on the past here. The future is where we're heading. I must admit, the place has a weird atmosphere, Bowtie Man says. Well, I've never felt it. Xander taps his fingers, a sheen appearing on his tanned face. He forces a smile. I bet it's haunted, Janice giggles, which feels untimely. Of course it isn't. Xander's smile disappears, his tone defensive. I thought I heard a ghost once, Janice goes on. Heard this terrifying scream in the middle of the night. Turned out to be a wee fox in my garden. It gave me quite the scare, as you can imagine. I'm not saying they don't exist. Ghosts, not foxes. I know foxes exist. There was one in my garden. What a great story, Janice, Xander says, stepping forward. But I must cut in, as we've so much to get through. Yes, we have lots planned for you here at Lakeside, Tara says. You'll adore the surroundings. I'm certain they'll lend themselves to your art and grab your imagination. Nobody knew much about the couple, did they? Caftan woman twirls a long strand of her red hair around her finger. She's not about to let the subject drop. And this is just the beginning for the Lakeside art retreat. Xander's clearly ignoring her, not meeting her eye. We're drawing up plans for 2 self-contained holiday cottages on the far reaches of the grounds, for those who enjoy more privacy, and there will be a further art studio. So when you return in the future, which I hope you will, you'll have even more choice. He places his arm round Tara's shoulders. We're a small but proactive team here, Tara says, flashing a look at her husband and pushing her hands into the pockets of her shorts. She clears her throat. Presently, we have 2 members of staff, but hope to employ more as we expand. Xander nods across the room to where a tall, grey-haired man with a look of George Clooney leans against the bar, his age difficult to judge. He could be anything from 55 to early 60s. Ralph is our jack-of-all-trades. Tara smiles over at him. There's not much he can't turn his hand to. And if you have any questions about the area, Xander says, Ralph is your man. He lived in the nearby village of Marplethorpe many years ago. We don't know what we would do without him, Tara says, and Ralph raises his hand in a wave and throws the gathered group a friendly smile. Then we have our new chef, Lorcan, who came to us from a Michelin-starred restaurant in London and is now busy in the kitchen preparing a magnificent feast for this evening. All our vegetables are fresh, grown here at Lakeside, and everything else is sourced locally. And now it's your turn to tell us a bit about yourselves, Xander says, smiling at his wife and caressing her back. They really are stunning. Beautiful, rich people. Then why does Tara seem so tense? Why does her smile look forced? Can we start with you, Polly? Xander asks. Her stomach churns with unease. She's confident with people she knows, but seems to have lost faith in strangers since she and Nikki were stalked, since the cameras were installed in their apartment, since their every move was filmed. She reassures herself that nobody will really be listening to her spiel anyway, all busy rehearsing what they're going to say in their heads. Well, she begins, I'm Polly and I'm 26. True. I would love to be good at art and read somewhere that, given the right tuition, I could be. Lie. She opens her mouth to carry on, but is cut off by Xander. Thanks, Polly. How about you? Xander looks towards the man in the red bow tie, who turns out to be Harry Hampton, a serious, pale man with a quiet disposition and a floppy dark fringe he constantly flicks back. I've been painting since I was 19, he says, pushing his red-framed glasses further up the bridge of his nose. My go-to is Gothic, macabre paintings that represent the destruction of our world, something I feel passionate about. But I'd like to give other styles a go. I recently dabbled in pottery and would like to develop my skills there too. Excellent. Tara tilts her head. You look familiar. Have we met? Not that I'm aware of. He turns back to the French doors. I think I would have remembered you. The woman in the caftan speaks up next. I'm Beatrice, and I specialise in graphic design. She's softly spoken, and there's a slight quiver in her voice. I hope to get a feel for more traditional art forms while I'm here. She pauses, presses her hand against her chest, her chin crinkling as if she's about to cry. Please excuse me if I seem a bit wobbly at times. She breaks off, flaps her face with her hand, and dabs a screwed-up tissue to her nose. My husband died 12 months ago, and I'm still coming to terms with it. I'm so sorry, Polly says, leaning forward to see past Janice, who is pulling at a thread, unravelling the cuff of her jumper. Yes, how truly awful, Tara agrees. Let's hope the retreat helps you work through your grief. And please know that my husband and I are here should you need us. Thank you. The woman, Beatrice, shoves the tissue into the pocket of her caftan. Janice tells the huddled group that she's taken up art since retiring as a schoolteacher and mainly paints dogs in jumpers. And though nobody seems particularly interested, she tells them how she collects biros from everywhere she visits, bringing out a handful from the bottom of her large handbag. Have you got one I could have, Xander? The bald man with the goatee, William Doyle, well-spoken and a little aloof, tells them he's been an amateur artist for some time and hopes to pick up lots of tips that might help him branch out professionally. Wonderful, Xander claps his hands. I'm so looking forward to seeing all your artwork. He pauses for a moment before picking up a pile of glossy pamphlets and starts handing them out. We have so much to fit into our 10 days together, and I, for one, cannot wait to get started. I hope you are all ready for what is going to be a fabulous experience at Lakeside Art Retreat. It's as he's handing out the pamphlets that Polly glances outside, her heartbeat quickening as she glimpses a figure in the distance. A tingle crosses the back of her neck. There's something about the way they're walking, stooping as though not wanting to be seen, the way they're dressed head to toe in black. She turns to Xander. Should she mention it? But then it's probably the chef or the other guest, and the last thing she wants to do is come across as paranoid, even though that's exactly how she feels at times. She certainly let what happened back home shatter her confidence, her feeling of safety. If only Nikki hadn't had that one-night stand a few months back. It was clear, after trying to cool things off, it had been a terrible mistake. The doorbell would ring in the middle of the night. A shadowy figure lingered in the darkness of the church graveyard opposite their apartment. Bunches of flowers arrived at the apartment and at the company where Nikki worked. Then came the abusive texts. Later, it became clear someone had been in the apartment while they were out. One of the front door keys had gone missing a few weeks before, and they'd had a new one cut, thinking nothing of it. But when odd things started happening, they realised the stalker must have the key, must have taken it the night Nikki stayed over. The first thing they noticed was one of Polly's dresses, a pretty blue one with tiny white daisies, had disappeared, as had the peridot stone ring Polly bought Nikki. Next, a pink teddy bear was left on her friend's bed, a pair of scissors plunged into its stomach, upsetting them both. We need to get away from here, Nikki, Polly had said in floods of tears. I'll go stay with my brother. You need to drive down to your parents, work from there, at least until we can find somewhere else to live. Then they'd found the hidden cameras. A flashing red light between the books on a shelf alerting them. And not just one. There were cameras hidden in every room, and they had no idea how long they'd been there. They called the police, but despite them checking out the address where Nikki had stayed the night, it was hopeless. The house had been a holiday let, and officers struggled to track down the person who'd rented it out that week. Nikki packed and left immediately, and Polly moved in with her brother and his wife just a few streets away. Neither wanted to set foot in the apartment ever again. Now, Polly turns back to the window to see the figure disappear from view. If only she had seen the stalker. Not knowing what they looked like is hard. Nikki's description of short dark hair and blue eyes could be almost anyone. But whoever they are, they surely couldn't be here. Whoever was out there by the lake just now can't have anything to do with what happened back home. Polly knows she must keep a check on herself, keep herself grounded, concentrate on why she's here at Lakeside, the place where the photo of her biological mother was taken. She rises, a hint of a migraine encroaching. She needs to be alone with her thoughts, adjust to being here. Well, it was good to meet you all, but I was going to go through the itinerary. Xander hands Polly a pamphlet. I'm afraid I'm going to have to pass. I have a bit of a headache. She flicks through the pages. Is everything I need to know in here? He nods. Well, yes. Then I'll see you all later. She lifts her hand, turns and walks away. The sounds of Janice asking Xander where the toilets are, and Tara calling after Polly again that she'll love room 6, fading into the background. Tara is right. Room 6 is amazing. And although her case hasn't yet been brought up to her room, the bathroom shelves are stuffed full of fluffy white towels and laden with expensive shower gels and body lotions. She pops 2 painkillers and wastes no time in stepping under the luxury waterfall shower, enjoying the way the hot water pulsates against her neck, her head, her body. Once showered and the pain relief has kicked in, she starts to feel better. She pulls on a complimentary robe and makes her way past the beautiful bedroom furnishings, running a hand over the marble surfaces as she moves towards the window. She stands next to a heavy wooden easel laden with canvases, paints and brushes she'll never use, something Xander and Tara put in all the rooms, according to the website. Her gaze taking her through the full-length window and out across the immaculate gardens in full bloom. The shimmering blues and greens of Kendalmere are breathtaking. She blinks away the sun. Someone's out there again. Further away this time, but she's sure it's the same person. Narrowing her eyes, she steps closer to the glass, but whoever they are, they're moving deeper into the surrounding trees. Annoyed at her stupid anxiety, Polly turns and makes her way towards the queen-sized bed and drops onto it, sinking into the super soft pillows, dozing for a few moments before pulling herself up and resting her head against the headboard. She takes the picture of her birth mother from her canvas bag and studies it through the scratched glass of the old frame. The young girl looks to be about 16, a sprinkling of acne across her chin giving away her youth, and she's wearing a loose-fitting ankle-length grey dress. Her blue-green eyes are large, so like Polly's, yet perhaps more soulful. Her parents gave her the framed photograph when she was young and simply told her it was a picture of her biological mother, that they didn't know who she was, that they would always love her. Polly never asked questions. As a child, she worried the answers would reveal that her biological mother hadn't wanted her, had abandoned her. In fact, she created stories in her mind that her mother was a warrior princess who left her to save the world. Later, she didn't need to know the truth. Her parents were amazing and had been there for her always. Her years growing up were rich with trips to the zoo and the seaside, and simpler things like sharing her mother's joy of gardening, following her around as she told her the names of all the plants in English and Latin. She recalls pulling the flowers close to her nose, smelling their delicious scent. There had been no place in Polly's world, growing up, for the woman who'd abandoned her. But more recently, she'd wanted to know more. Perhaps the trigger was her parents deciding to up and move to Provence. She would miss them. Their absence would leave a void. Or maybe it was because she felt if they lived hundreds of miles away, she wouldn't hurt them by looking into who her real mother was. Just before they moved, Polly had found the courage to ask her mother if she knew anything at all about her biological mother. Surprisingly, her mother was forthcoming, didn't seem to have a problem with Polly wanting to know. All I can tell you is that she was found on the streets of Westminster, in labour, that she was rushed to hospital, where she died, giving birth to you. She'd touched Polly's face then. She had no identification on her, only the photo. I'm sorry, my darling. So, whoever Polly's biological mother was, it seemed she hadn't abandoned her after all, and Polly found herself travelling down a rabbit hole, determined to find out who she was. The photo, the house name etched into the wall, was her only clue. She looks around the vast bedroom. Had her mother lived here at Lakeside? Or was the fact she was photographed on the doorstep incidental? Was she connected to the suicide victims, Esme and Stephen Frampton? And who is the figure roaming the grounds? Chapter 3. Esme. 42 years ago. I'm pregnant. I wish I wasn't, but I am. It's not that I don't want a baby. I do. I used to dream when I was in my late teens that I would meet the perfect man and we'd have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and call them Lila and Edward. But now, at 25 and married to a monster, I fear for my unborn baby. Of course, I will love the child with all my heart, will breathe in the smell of its soft newborn skin, will pour affection onto my tiny boy or girl like liquid gold. But the thought of Stephen as a father fills me with dread. He doesn't know how to love, only how to hate. I can and I will protect my child from its father, I tell myself. I won't let any harm come to my baby. But I'm not sure I'm equipped to keep my baby safe. The man locks me in the pantry when I annoy him, despite knowing I'm claustrophobic. He strikes me often. And once he left me outside in the snow in my nightdress for hours. What if he does it to baby Lila or baby Edward? I haven't told Stephen I'm pregnant, afraid of his reaction. I'll wait until I've seen the doctor. He doesn't need to know, not yet. I saw Perdita Brooke in Marplethorpe Village shop earlier. I pinned her in the corner by the cheese. The Red Leicester was on offer. I love Red Leicester. I didn't buy it. Stephen hates it. Perdita was the only person I could tell my secret to. She'll be my midwife. She had to know sometime. You must share the good news with Stephen, Esme. Her eyes were bright with excitement, her shiny dark hair resting prettily on her shoulders. He'll be so happy, you'll see. But she doesn't know what he's like. Perdita thinks she's pregnant too. Early days, she said, placing a hand on her stomach. I'm sure it's a boy. I can sense it. But you're not married. I don't doubt I sound like a naive 50s teenager, as though I believed it was impossible to get pregnant out of wedlock. She laughed, rested her hand on my arm. You're so old-fashioned, Esme, she said, her smile wide and warm. I may get married at some point, but it's okay these days. To live in sin. She laughed again at that. She's right, I am old-fashioned. I was brought up to believe you shouldn't do rude things with boys until you are married, and even then only when he wants to. Never initiate, Esme, Stephen said once, when I tried to kiss him, telling me I was no better than a whore. Stephen would certainly be shocked to hear about Perdita's loose behaviour. I won't tell him. I may not have a ring on my finger, Esme, Perdita went on. She's truly beautiful, is Perdita. She could have any man. But I'm in love, and that's all that matters. I wonder now who she's fallen in love with. He's an artist, she mentioned that much, and apparently he works on the fairground that comes to Marplethorpe. I wonder, too, what that feels like, to be in love, and for someone to love you back. It must feel incredible. I read romantic novels when Stephen's not home, hide them under the mattress when he returns. I imagine being in the arms of a man I truly love, who truly loves me. It feels magical to enter that fantasy, even though I can never stay long. I wish I could leave Stephen, but the truth is I'm scared to. He told me once that if I ever leave, he will find me and I'll regret it. I met him when I was an assistant at a garden centre in Ambleside. I loved my job. I miss it. Stephen was a customer looking to buy a wheelbarrow. He chatted with me, said I was pretty, which I'm fully aware I am not. I suppose I've never had much attention from the opposite sex, well, from anyone, really, and fell for his greasy charm. I blame my upbringing to some degree, for my desperation to be loved. Mother and father were good enough people, I suppose, but when my younger brother Edward died from a rare blood disease when I was 7, they were never really the same. They were old-fashioned in their thinking long before Edward died, but it got worse. They were too protective of me in some ways, feared I might die too, but neglectful in others. Hugs and kisses, which had been 2 a penny when Edward was alive, dried up, becoming a peck on the cheek when it was my birthday, if I was lucky. They're dead now, my parents. Died of a broken heart, I suppose. I miss the people they once were, but not the faded, bitter replicas they became. But I'll never get over the loss of my little brother. He'd been my everything as a child. I'm the first to admit my looks aren't my greatest asset. My mother once called me Plain Jane, which was silly as my name is Esme. But I thought Stephen saw something in me. I was a fool, stupidly thrilled when he invited me out for a meal. It was nice. The meal, I mean. I had scampi. I remember scampi and chips in a basket with tartar sauce. I'd never had it before. He was such a gentleman that day, and I couldn't believe he liked me. Well, as it turned out, he didn't. His attention soon evaporated after we got married, like moisture on wet clothes drying in the sun. I'm not sure why he wanted me in his life, except perhaps to control me. I'll go and see the doctor next week when Stephen's at work. Or maybe I'll go tomorrow when he's in Windermere. He's started collecting war memorabilia, though I'm not sure why. He saw an advert in the newspaper. A man called Giles Alderman is selling some medals. He's heading to meet him. Perhaps if he gets a hobby, he'll leave me alone. Chapter 4. Polly. There's a sharp knock on the bedroom door. Polly rises and makes her way across the room, picking up on the tinkling sound of music out in the hallway. "Hello," she calls, pressing her ear against the door. The tune is Polly Put the Kettle On. She looks through the peephole at the cone-like shape of the hallway. There's nobody there. The music has stopped. Heart thudding, she places her hand on the door handle, waits a moment, then gingerly opens up. She pokes her head out, looking left and right down the hallway of closed doors. There are no windows, the lighting low, the area silent. "Hello? Is there anybody there?" She tries to convince herself she imagined the sound, that it was a kind of ringing in her ears. After all, she's tired, has driven a long way. But surely she didn't imagine the knock. She's about to step back into her room when a shadow crawls along the wall at the end of the hallway, growing bigger. Someone is down there, just round the corner, out of sight. An icy prickle runs down Polly's spine. She leaps back into her room, slams the door. For goodness sake, what's wrong with her? The looming shadow could have been anyone coming up the stairs. Why was she so stupidly afraid to check it out? But she knows why. Why she's always on edge. It's since the stalker invaded her home. Within moments there's another knock on the door, and her heart speeds up once more. "Who is it?" "It's Ralph, Miss Ashton." The shadow? It must have been his. She opens the door once more to see the man who was standing behind the bar at introductions, still wearing a white polo and black trousers. His skin tanned, his grey hair neatly styled. "Good afternoon, Miss Ashton," he says, flashing dark eyes, her suitcase at his feet. "May I come in?" She nods, opens the door wider for him to enter, and he wheels in her case, turning immediately to make his exit. "Thank you," she says, "and please call me Polly." He turns as he reaches the door. "Dinner will be served from 7, Polly," he says with a smile. She goes to close the door once he's stepped back out into the hallway. "Just one more thing before you go," she says. "Did you hear music when you came up the stairs?" He furrows his forehead. "No, is everything okay?" "Yes, all good." It's far from the truth. "I don't suppose you saw anyone on your way up?" "No, I'm afraid not. Are you sure you're okay?" "I am, yes." She smiles, and he heads away down the lush hallway in his shiny shoes. Perhaps she did imagine the music after all. Polly sits opposite Janice at dinner, watching as she devours her starter of beetroot bonbons. Beatrice, wearing the same turquoise caftan as earlier, is sitting at a table with William. Harry is alone in the corner. There's no sign of Marcia. "So, you enjoy art?" Polly says, feeling she should make polite conversation. I do. Janice covers her mouth, continuing to chew. "Since I retired from teaching, I've been painting regularly." She swallows, puts down her fork, and pulls her phone from her handbag, though how she found it amongst the chaos of used tissues, biros, and till receipts is a mystery. She shakes the phone as though it's an Etch-a-Sketch, seemingly trying to wake it up, then thrusts the small screen a little too close to Polly's face. The blurry images of pugs, Dalmatians, and every kind of oodle are scrolled past her eyes, all wearing brightly coloured jumpers, rather like the one Janice is wearing. They're good, Polly supposes, if you like that sort of thing. It humanises them, don't you think? Janice smiles, beads of perspiration lying above her top lip, her face glowing red. I'm hoping to branch out to cats, though they tend to get a bit scratchy. She leans forward, runs her hand over the shoulder of Polly's floral summer dress. Such a lovely frock, by the way. Thanks. Polly's eyes drift to Beatrice and William. Beatrice seeming to be talking at him rather than with him. He looks uncomfortable, keeps stroking his hand over his bald head, crossing and uncrossing his legs. I'm learning to play the trumpet, too. It's Janice again, breaking into Polly's thoughts, her fork back in her hand, suspended in the air. It's harder than it looks. I'm sure it is. Once the 5 courses have been eaten, Polly lays her napkin on the table, feeling far too full and a little brain-dead after listening to Janice for so long. And to cut a long story short, the woman is saying now, the postman said I'm to put circulars into my recycle bin, not back in the postbox. Well, I said to him, nice boy, wears shorts in all weathers. Well, I said, sorry to interrupt, Polly says, rising, but I think I'm going to have an early night. I'm pretty tired. It's been a long day. OK, dear. Well, I'll see you tomorrow then. Polly turns away from her and dashes across the dining room and out through the door. The lobby is cooler. A clock on the wall behind the plush reception desk chimes 10. She should go to bed, try for a good night's sleep. But nobody's about, and this place is calling to her to be explored. Had it once been her mother's home? The scene of a double suicide?